First of all, we have many initiatives trying to just spread the word that GenAI exists. Some people even don't know about it. I mean, they're in the minority now, but that this technology exists and that they are allowed to have access to it, and how to have access to it and how to use this technology in a way that's useful, how to get the most from this technology.
Hello and welcome to the Data Culture Podcast. I'm Carsten, founder and CEO of Bark, and my guest today is Ben Hoyle. He is a staff scientist and advanced technologist at ZEISS Group. And in that role, he's acting like an ambassador of GenAI, but also leading many technical GenAI initiatives. So he's a perfect person to talk to about the state of GenAI and all the experiences he made in ZEISS Group. So we learn about the major use cases. Where were the challenges? And also his take on agentic AI, where they gained some experience, but we'll also learn why he says sometimes you shouldn't do it. And basically, it's a great collection of the journey of GenAI at ZEISS and all the learnings they did. And also, we'll learn about the initiatives around culture, data culture, meaning how to bring GenAI to a company of 45,000 employees and how to empower people and bring the powerful technology that we have now in the hands of as many people as possible. Enjoy the episode. Hi, Ben.
Hey, Carsten, how are you?
I'm great. How are you today?
Good, thanks. Happy New Year, of course, I should say.
Yes.
We can still say that we're still in the middle of January, or just before. I think the middle of January is when you should stop saying it. So the last day where I can actually say it.
So, and I think it will be another AI year, I would guess. But let us start maybe with you giving us let's say more a general overview how AI is being used at ZEISS.
Sure thing. So first of all, thanks a lot for the opportunity to be on this podcast and to talk about initiatives going on within Carl Zeiss, the company I work for. So Zeiss has already a long history with AI, so Zeiss is composed of different business units, and each business unit tackles different different technologies or different problems. And what we have is that in most business units and in even umbrella or business units which span these underlying business units, then we have AI initiatives basically everywhere in the company. And so we've been using AI from very, very early days when you would just have floating point number based calculations, which you were doing with some very simple types of machine learning. Of course, ZEISS is all about images. And so when deep machine learning became a thing, then ZEISS were very quick to jump on this bandwagon. So we have lots of deep machine learning expertise and teams leading efforts in deep machine learning and image-based machine learning. Natural language processing has also been a thing for a long time, and we have already a lot of expertise on natural language processing. But of course, with the advent of GenAI, or when generative AI really became a thing, so late 2022, we were in a good position to already jump on this new technology. And since 2022, at least in the field that I work, or the area that I work in, everything has been about generative AI. And so we have all types of use cases coming from all areas of the business, trying to understand how to best use this technology. We have in the company, we have regular update meetings within with expert people interested in AI, generative AI, and deep machine learning, image-based machine learning. We have regular meetings where people from around the globe come and join, or they join online and present their work on their projects. And we have monthly update meetings in the area of generative AI because this field is developing so quickly.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. How many people are involved with this And maybe you could tell us a little bit more how the setup is. So do you have like a central team that's like implementing use cases or only pilots? So how's that organized?
To start with, ZEISS has got about 45,000 employees approximately worldwide. Um, and in each of the different business units, then there are typically dedicated teams working in AI, and also very many initiatives in generative AI. Um, and what we have is from, say, a central team, we try and understand which use cases could scale and span across the different business units. So, and then maybe we could tackle that technology or help build that technology such that every different business unit doesn't need to build the same solution. But of course, there's lots of scope for bespoke solutions in each different business unit. And so this is not only true of generative AI, but also true of standard AI, standard machine learning, and standard deep machine learning.
So if I understood you correctly, you do both. Yeah. So you have data scientists, people skilled with AI and Gen AI in business units, but you also have the central team, correct?
Absolutely right. And so maybe to answer that a bit more fully, then we have an exchange forum for people interested in generative AI. And we also have exchange forums for people interested in standard AI or standard deep machine learning. And in the generative AI forum, we have 2,500 employees signed up. So from 44,000 employees across the entire globe doing all job roles, 2,500 of them are interested enough in Gen AI to be in this forum. And very like more than 1,000 people per day are active in this forum, exchanging ideas, updates, discussing projects. And so we have a very lively community. And because this technology is developing so quickly, it's really important for us to spread the knowledge that some of us gain about generative AI as far and as wide through the company as possible. And so through these forums, we try to disseminate our knowledge and share this knowledge with others, and also provide trainings.
I mean, that's quite a big engagement, I would say, a lot going on. Did it change over the last years? I mean, this has been very much hyped, and now we are like 2 years, maybe even 3 years into the whole Gen AI topic. We also see that some companies are changing their approach to Gen AI even. What happened at ZEISS?
Yes, so so the community itself, so that's been growing, started off, I would say like exponential growth, basically. So it started off not exactly exponential growth, but as good as. So it started off very slowly, people trickling in, learning about this community and then being involved in it. And then as we released more and more tools to the employees to enable them to interact with generative AI in some way, so then we had massive influxes of more and more people who were then got interested in this technology and joined this forum.
What about engagement at the board level or leadership? We saw a big like initiatives, a big excitement, and now it seems like that in some organizations the focus has shifted towards more operationalization. Yeah, so I think the question often is now, show me the money. Yeah, so where are the benefits? Is that true also for ZEISS?
Absolutely, yes. So just like every other company, and the world, in fact, generative AI hit everybody and really was a surprise to everybody. It was also a surprise to people working at OpenAI how well the GPT-3 models actually performed. And since then, of course, there's been a steady acceleration in the capabilities of these models. There was a lot of hype at the beginning about what these models could do. And I would actually say that the hype wasn't completely unfounded. These models are becoming and are already really strong, very powerful. But so the hype surrounding, will these models continue to get better? I think that's been answered, and the answer is, of course, yes, they do keep getting better, and they are incredible now. The hype around what business value you can generate from these from this new technology, I think there was a mismatch between expectations in the early days to what was realized, and I think now those that gap is narrowing between expectations and what's actually possible. So everybody really thought that generative AI would be able to solve all problems, and I would even say that it is very, very good at solving very many problems. But the one factor which has slowed down generative AI being used to solve many problems is actually an integration question.
Mhm.
It's not a technology or a capability question. It's how do we give our data to generative AI, or how do we give a generative AI access to tools like scraping performing web searches, or taking data from the internet, or calling databases, or looking through files, looking at our Word documents, things like that. How do we give it access to how do we integrate it into our workflows and our day-to-day processes? And this has been a slower there's been a slow adoption in this integration from what maybe we were expecting a couple of years ago. And I would say that the 2023 was really the year of this tech is new and exciting, and people got interested in it. It was also the year, and this also came from part of your question was about the board. How did the board feel about the generative AI? So there was strong buy-in from very early days about the usage of generative AI, even at the board level, and this really this was supported by the partnership that ZEISS have with Microsoft. And of course, Microsoft have a very strong partnership with OpenAI. So ZEISS would get early access to a lot of technology through Microsoft as soon as Microsoft had it, or very shortly after Microsoft had it. So of course, the board were very interested in us to be using this technology and figuring out the capabilities together with Microsoft. What can this technology actually deliver? And so we had very early access to the models, but again, it's really the integration question. How do we so we have this model that's maybe very capable, but how do we give access to our data? What's the right way of giving access to the data, and how we can actually use it to generate value? And so 2023 was the year of, hey, this model exists, and trying to figure out how to use it in a way that's compliant with our ZEISS values. We did that. 2024 was use cases and initial steps of integration, and giving employees access to these models and to applications which use these models. And I really think 2025 will be the year of deeper and deeper integration into our day-to-day workflows, into our operating systems, into all programs, all web browsers. So 2025 will be about integrations, and then the next steps of 2025, which I think we'll talk about later, agents and maybe even synthetic employees.
Yeah, we have to talk about agents for sure. Before we do that, could you let me know maybe what types of use cases you were addressing, or maybe the ones that were most interesting, where you could score real successes?
So when we first started to think about use cases of generative AI, we had an open call within the company. Who has a use case idea? And we collected, when we collected a whole heap, like 50 or 60 different use cases of potential applications for generative AI. We actually sat down with Microsoft as our partner and some AI experts from Microsoft, and had them help us figure out which of these could actually bring value and which of these could we work on. And Microsoft work with, of course, many other companies. And so they had a really nice overview of the different types of use cases being proposed by many different companies across many different sectors. And it turns out everybody really wanted the same type of use case. And at the very beginning, this was knowledge retrieval from documents. So you have a document stack, and you want to find out some information that's embedded in that document stack. This could be this problem allows itself to very many different types of individual use cases. So solving I have a question that I want to ask of a document stack problem allows you to help onboard new employees into your processes, help figure out how to create wiki web pages or update wiki web pages if you have a complex wiki system, can help you if you want to summarize or ask questions of large employee guideline books or something, or documents. So really, it's this tackling this one generic use case actually would then be a one generic application would allow very many bespoke use cases then to use this technology. And so ZEISS, like every other company, wanted some form of a knowledge retrieval from documents. And we worked together with Microsoft and developed our own solutions to try and tackle this problem with generative AI. I would say that ZEISS were already in a very good position to be working on this type of project, because even before GenAI was the thing, we had natural language processing engineers and experts, and were already working on similar types of problems, trying to find be able to ask and answer questions from knowledge bases or from documents. And so this was really thought of as being the clear winner for generative AI in the early days, in early 2023. Everyone thought that document search or knowledge retrieval from documents would be a very low hanging fruit. And I guess many of us bought our own bought the tale that we were telling, that we were selling, and everyone claimed that this would be quite an easy solution to build. Turns out it wasn't as easy as everybody was expecting. There's lots of technicalities and complications which go into the knowledge retrieval from large documents. And in particular, one of the biggest problems is how are the documents formatted? GPT was trained with, if you will, words and sentences as they would be written in a book. So very simple, structured words and sentences. One word after another in a book. Now imagine you have a complex document where you've got panels of information and tables and graphs. This really open question still. Excuse me. An open question still. How do you extract that text in a way that you can give to your very powerful large language model to ask and answer a question? And so that really slowed down a lot of use cases and led to really mixed results in the early days. And a mass of work has gone on since then, trying to make these use cases work or build a robust technology that is useful in a wide range of use cases. And I would say this is still really an open question, even an open scientific research question, the best way to do this. However, there are many steps are being taken, and there are lots of improvements being made. And for some simple document bases, then this works very well. And so we have many clear winning use cases that bring a lot of value. And this is really, if the document structure is very simple, then this can bring a lot of value.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And did these use cases evolve now over 2 years? You mentioned this was the primary one. Do you also now look at other things?
Absolutely. So once we identified that knowledge retrieval from documents was something that every area of the company were interested in, then we set aside a dedicated team to really try to tackle this. And that enabled other people to then look at other use cases. For example, the writing of computer code. Generative AI is very good at writing computer code. Maybe before, in the early days, it wasn't so good, but now it's really exceptional. And of course, Microsoft saw this and realized that they could provide a solution to many of their customers that would allow many customers to be writing computer code more efficiently, and that's a product that they would happily buy. And so even though we had initiatives looking at the generation of computer code, so when Microsoft came out with a nice solution, GitHub Copilot, then we were also a relatively early adopter of this technology because we saw that it brings massive value.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about technology. One question is, especially in knowledge retrieval from documents, there are different approaches. Yeah? Some take the RAG approach, retrieval augmented generation. Some do fine tuning. Some use open source models and train them themselves, more or less. What was your approach, or what is your approach?
So we were interested in any approach that worked. Basically, we just wanted a solution. We didn't go in with a predefined sense of idea of what is the best technology to try. And so we tried many solutions. Um, Actually, it turns out that fine tuning isn't really a thing. And as we were working with Microsoft, who worked with very many partners, they also saw that it's not really a thing. So fine tuning, we didn't have to spend much time exploring. And then any as these models kept evolving and kept getting better, and the embedding models kept getting better, so we actually got to a level where the choice of what model you use and the embedding model you're using, or the large language model and the embedding model, isn't really the limiting factor. The limiting factor now is the documents, are the documents in a good format that you can then send to the large language model. And so then we were able to shift focus away from the problem of, what is the actual technology stack? Just use the latest models. Any of the latest models are good enough. Any of the big embedded models are good enough. And then divert your attention elsewhere, probably to data cleaning and making sure that your documents are in a good state.
Yeah. So we are back at the data, which is typically the foundation and the big problem here. Do you provide any general access to OpenAI, ChatGPT, or anything like that to any employee that wants to have it?
Absolutely. Yeah. So one of the cause of one of the value, or our core values at ZEISS, is really trying to empower our employees to use new technology and keep up to date with the new technology, and use this in their day-to-day workflows. And so what we do is, of course, in the early days, everybody was a bit scared about sending data to OpenAI's models, because they were historically used to do further training, and some secrets could be leaked. Those days have actually gone, but we, at the time when we were worrying about this problem, then we also had those issues to care about. And so data security is of course very important to us, like it is to all big companies. And now, because of our partnership with Microsoft, and Microsoft's working, funding OpenAI, then we were able to have access to OpenAI models hosted in our Microsoft Azure cloud environment, in an area of that belongs to ZEISS. And so it's like we had copies of these models, and we could ensure that any data we sent to and from these models couldn't be obtained by anybody else, or wouldn't be used for further training. So once we set that up in a way that then is compliant with our security regulations, then we wanted to empower our employees to use this technology. So we built web interfaces and gave access to all employees, very simple interfaces to this chatbot. And then as the technologies evolve, then we've tried to keep up. Of course, the team is a lot smaller than what you would have from OpenAI. So our interfaces are maybe not as good as what you get from OpenAI, but we're trying to keep up. So things like enabling the large language models to perform web searches to get up-to-date information, or connecting to different data sets. Assistant building software, so enabling employees to create assistants, a lot like OpenAI's GPT builder. We have a technology like that also within the company, to really enable employees to have their hands on the latest tech, or the latest tech that we can really give them, and have them learn about that technology. We provide trainings within the company, such that employees can get up to speed on how best to use this technology, and basically everybody could have access.
Yeah, since we're in the Data Culture podcast, this obviously is of a specific interest. So how do you engage your workforce? How can you make sure everyone is empowered, knowledgeable? You already mentioned a few activities you do, like your community and the training. What else are you doing, or what might be your take on what's most successful or has been most impactful at ZEISS?
Yeah, so this is a good question, and it's actually quite difficult to answer. ZEISS is 44,000 employees, and trying to send one message to all 44,000 employees is actually very difficult. Um, so, first of all, we have many initiatives trying to just spread the word that GenAI exists. Some people even don't know about it. I mean, they're in the minority now, but that this technology exists and that they are allowed to have access to it, and how to have access to it and how to use this technology in a way that's useful, how to get the most from this technology. And so that comes about through um, we have like an internal Facebook page, if you will, or social media platform. I mean, and we have an internal social media platform, and so we post regularly to that social media platform, trying to get people knowledgeable about this topic. We give talks, and we try to support others giving talks as well. So we really try to democratize not only the knowledge about Gen AI, but also that the task of spreading the word about generative AI, or spreading further knowledge about generative AI. And this has really been helped by um, the position the board has adopted to really make generative AI an important topic for ZEISS. So if people listen to the CEO of ZEISS talk about generative AI, or to the head of their business unit talking about generative AI, and maybe in some cases actually using generative AI in front of them, then of course they start to realize that this is the tool they can use. And so we've had both a top-down type approach to spreading the word and getting people excited to use generative AI, and very much from the grassroots level, from a bottom up. So we're trying to spread the message as much as possible. Yeah, we give talks and presentations. We have videos. We have trainings on our training platforms. We have events dedicated to generative AI, which we invite everybody to. And we have the social media platform. But still, we haven't reached everybody in the company.
Yeah. Okay. What about agentic AI? I mean, that's the big thing everyone's talking about, where we see also new things happening. Is that also something you work on?
Yeah, absolutely. So, of course, the mid 2024 onwards was all about the new kid on the block was agentic AI, and the reason why this is interesting, of course, is because you can take a less capable model, for example, GPT 3.5, you can put it into this agentic framework, and then you can get in this agentic framework, then you can get performance or capabilities better than what you would have, for example, with bare bones at GPT-4. And so you get a big kick in capability by using these agentic frameworks. So within the company, we've explored many different types of agentic frameworks, and we've been playing about with this technology as it's been emerging. And we want to spread the word more, but it's actually quite difficult to do that, because it's a relatively advanced topic. And so you already need to be somewhat of an expert in the direction of generative AI before you can start thinking about and using agentic flows. And so it's really not a solution for everybody. And what more is, if you have some model with some capability, you put it into an agentic framework, then you get a big boost in capability. But if you just wait maybe 2 model generations later, then actually just asking the question of a more powerful model, you would actually get better results than you would with this agentic flow, with these agentic frameworks. And so it's sort of a balance. In my mind, so agentic frameworks look like, and agentic flows really looked like they were going to be a thing and are a thing. But it also appears that you could just wait a bit and ask the same question of a more capable model, and then all the complexity that goes into your agentic framework basically disappears. Having said that, we are early adopters of technology, and so we were working and are working on agent-based projects. I've used them myself for various tasks, and what we find is agent teams are very good at the ideation stage, and very good at creating processes which then we can then execute. However, what actually the community, and if you ask the O1 model itself, what's a good use of agentic frameworks or flows, then you'll get actually the same result back. What we found is that you don't really want to use agentic frameworks in a productive environment. And if we compare, or if we make a parallel between agent teams and human teams, imagine you were the chief financial officer of a company, and you wanted to figure out how well is your company performing over the last year. Then you wouldn't go to your team and have the developers go into a production database and their database is running in a production environment and start typing in SQL code and downloading data and making plots and then presenting those plots back to the CFO. What you would do is, your team would write code and test code, probably in some development or staging environment. And when everybody's happy that the code is performing exactly as you expect, then you might run that on your productive environment, have a report that you would then send to the CFO. And so you won't really give your human team members access to productive running environments. You shouldn't really. And the same is true actually with agent systems. So what agent teams are really good at is exactly the writing of code, testing of code. But then we should just have them write the code and run it and test it on development or staging environments. But we don't want the agents themselves to be playing with a productive environment. We want to be just taking the code they developed and running that in a production setting. And this is really what we find anytime we use agents, is that they're really good at many tasks, but just like humans, we don't want them to be answering the most important questions by having access to our critical data.
Yeah, no, I think that's an interesting point to make here. Can you share one or some use cases, some agentic AI implementations that you found very interesting?
So what I personally did, so I used agentic systems to help me collect statistics about the anonymized statistics about the usage of generative AI within the company. And at the time, so we had many generative AI applications, but we weren't collecting statistics. And we wanted to, of course, go to our managers and show what is the adoption and the usage of these tools, such that we can maybe bring more money and help us work on these solutions and fix bugs and improve features as requested for by the employees. And so we had code bases written in various languages. There was React, there was bare bones JavaScript front end codes. We had backend Python and then databases in various technologies. And I used an agent developer team to give me code snippets that I could put into a React script or into bare bones JavaScript or jQuery script. Or JavaScript with jQuery running in it, and provide Python code that would then act as an API listener to data being sent from these front end scripts, which of course be sending anonymized data and usage statistics to the back end. That would then get sent to databases. Then we would have other scripts to connect to these databases and pull these statistics and create summary statistics. Then we'd of course want to package all that up in a web page, a real-time web page with graphs and with some nice looking web page with graphs and stuff, connecting to these backend services that have these summary statistics. And so I basically stated what I just said to my agent developer team and hit go, and it ran off and started working on this technology. I was using, and so that there's many different AI agentic frameworks you can use, many different developer frameworks you can also, AI-based developer frameworks you can use. So I was using one, and it kept coming back and asking me for input or updates or a better definition of specifications, which I gave it. and then it basically produced heaps of code that I could copy paste into my applications, into my Python backend, and run. And from that, we were able to collect statistics about the usage statistics that we could then use to take to management and say, look, we need more funding for this project because it's really useful. And I would say that was one use case where I could have done all of those steps myself. Like I'm okay at React and okay at JavaScript, and my Python skills are pretty good. So I could have done all that myself, and that really helped me to build confidence that these systems were working and producing code of a reasonable quality. However, then I was stuck. So I had some really complex React code across many different files that had a really nice front end, but I wanted to redesign it to make it look even better. And I put off this task of redesigning this front end of this web app for many months because I had just other stuff to do. And I really estimated that it would take me like 3 days of really sitting down, no distractions, of working hard, trying to understand this code. And when 01 came out, so we had access to 01 preview from Microsoft. So when 01 preview came out, I basically said, I wonder if 01 can solve this problem. So not even an agentic framework, just 01, which is, next level capability in this model. I gave it a whole heap of code and I said, just fix it and make it better. And it thought for 12 seconds or 20 seconds. And it said, hey, here you go. Here's an improvement. And I copy pasted the code, it gave it to me. It worked first time out of the box. And it did exactly what I wanted it to do. And it was incredible. So we went from this stage of, having agentic teams work on a code base for me, with some additional complexity of having an agentic team, messaging frameworks, etc., to just giving a very difficult problem and I could solve that task, to giving a task that would be really tough for me to solve, to the next gen model, and it just solved it in 20 seconds. I'd put this task off for like 3 months or something, because I was doing other stuff, and it solved it in 20 seconds, and the results are incredible. And so now I'm very much a proponent of try it out on the best model you have, or try it out on a good model. If it's not good enough, try it on a better model if you have access to one. And you might just solve the task there and then.
Yeah, no, that's a great example for the point you made earlier. Yeah, that it might be also a strategy to just wait until the foundation models get more capable. Just out of curiosity, what agentic or agent framework are you using?
So we trialed many of them. There are open source ones. Crew AI we trialed. There's AutoGen Studio from Microsoft we trialed. There was one Pythagora we trialed. But you can find a ever-growing list of agentic frameworks, both open source and closed source. Devin and Devinka, Open Devin. There's literally more agentic frameworks than you can shake a stick at. And what I expect, just like early 2023 or mid 2023, there were lots of different large language models, each with different capabilities. And now we're at the point where the differences between the large language models are basically uninteresting, unless you're really talking about the very best models, like Microsoft's large language models, OpenAI's, Facebook, Google. They're all good enough for most tasks. So just like that's the state of where we were with large language models back in 2023, like there were always different competitors, and now they're all good enough. I would say that all the different agentic frameworks will end up actually converging to just being good enough. So like there are some are better than others right now, or were better than others, have more functionality, but it's, I would really expect all of these different frameworks to have similar features and similar capabilities as we move forward, such that again, the differences between the agentic framework is that not really an interesting question to be having.
Okay, interesting view. Let's sum this up, Ben. Maybe you could give us your top recommendations. Yeah. So what do you think, what's most important if you want to tackle Gen AI as a company successfully?
Great. Yes. Thanks a lot for the question. So I think definitely keeping up to date on established, new, and upcoming technology. We really have to know what's there, know what's coming, and have some idea about the future and the future directions of this technology. And of course, you can do that by looking at what is already available in OpenAI or what's already available by Gemini or by Microsoft. You can do things like follow the Microsoft Build Days or the OpenAI Dev Days or Google and Meta's releases, where they have YouTube videos describing the technology in their roadmaps. Keep up to date by watching YouTube videos, reading blogs and Medium articles, for example. There's a heap of information. So really keeping up to date, knowing what's there and keeping up to date and having some idea about the future direction of this technology is super useful. For companies, then really set up guidelines that are compliant with your core values, and train employees on these core values, and give employees access to these tools, and try to give them as early access as you can, because a lot of the very best ideas that you'll be getting and how to use this technology won't be coming from managers or upper management. They'll be really coming from people at the grassroots level who need to use this technology in their day-to-day work. So give people access, then train them on how to get the most from the technology. Prompt engineering used to be a real thing. Those days are actually going a bit as the models just become better, but it's still with us today. So make sure that your employees understand how to write good prompts to get the most about that from the models. Then two final things would be understand the landscape in generative AI, in the technology landscape, changes drastically. So whereas before, if you were to organize some project to work on, you would have a 6-month or a 1-year plan about what you want to deliver at what time. We should be really ready for the fact that because our background in the background GenAI technology is evolving so quickly, and because there's so much interest globally about this technology from developers as well, then it might well be that the project direction that you've taken, or your choice of technology, or your choice of project, whilst was a good decision today, a week ago, a month ago, or a year ago, might not be the right decision tomorrow. It might be better to, and so this project life cycle might actually change. So sure, start going in some direction, and I would also suggest take a project and start going in that direction, try to work on that project, but keep up to date with what's happening in the larger environment, because you might just be able to buy a solution instead of developing your own solution. And that shouldn't be seen as a fail in any sense of the word for the team who are working on that topic, because the background's changing so quickly and it's so difficult to see what's happening in the future. And just by taking some direction and moving in that direction, you're already doing something. Staying still is really not a good idea. And the act of working on projects, even if it doesn't lead to a successful deployment of that project, gives people, upskills people in the area of generative AI, which is probably the most useful thing we can have right now as people skilled in this technology. And then finally, have fun. This technology is affecting everybody. My grandma, who's 96, asked me about this technology. I was just a few weeks ago having dinner with some friends from volleyball, and this generative AI discussion came up. I promise I don't always start conversations about generative AI. This conversation about generative AI came up, which of course I could contribute to. And then some guy on the table next to us wanted to join our conversation about generative AI. So it's really a technology which is capturing the imagination of the world. Working in this field is really exciting because everybody is interested in this tech. And so there's a lot of fun to be had and interesting conversations to be had.
I like that recommendation. Yeah, and have fun. And by the way, if you're having fun, you also create a positive culture overall. Yeah? So people are more receptive, they're more open to new things. And so I think it's an important recommendation. Ben, thanks so much.
Before I go, just to say like a word from our sponsors. ZEISS, so we have open positions in many areas of AI and technology. We are a technology-based company. So if you're interested in joining ZEISS, do take a look at our website where we have job postings. We have job openings around the globe. So even if you're not based in Germany or in Europe, you might still be able to come and join ZEISS on our journey of using AI and generative AI and trying to bring value to the company and to humanity.
Great. Ben, thanks so much for sharing all your experiences with us. I think it was very interesting. And I think I will see you soon, probably at the Data Festival. See you there.
Great. Thanks a lot, Carsten.
Bye-bye.
Bye.